Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Traci Stein, as always. I am really happy to be here with you because you are important. I consider you a part of my community and to be a part of yours. So, thank you for listening. Um, Today's episode is going to be a little different. Not really, but it's November 7th. In the United States, we've recently had a very fraught election season and election process, and I don't think it's going to necessarily be easier anytime soon. So, I was trying to think of what could I possibly offer today. Um, and I guess if I had to give this podcast episode a title, it would be Ways to Cope with Post-Election Angst. And that just means like significant anxiety about something on a larger scale. And I feel that. And I know so many of you feel that as well. Whether or not your candidate won, I know that right now this tension is so pervasive. So I wanted to talk about some things, some thoughts I had about how we can get through at least the immediate term. Please know that I am not telling anybody that there's one right way to do this. I don't think so. It would be a lot easier if there were one right way, but I don't think there is. Um, but I think there are general things that can help us to reduce our own stress and reduce some of the interpersonal conflict that I have noticed since 2015. And I know you all know what I'm talking about, right? Because the tension has pervaded and infiltrated every relationship we have, right? And some we feel like, oh, these people get me, we're on the same page. And other ones we feel like we're screaming into the void, trying to talk to some people. And other things, and people are talking about things that I get, feeling betrayed, feeling misunderstood, feeling unimportant. And you know what? In some cases, that's actually quite true, and many. And in other cases, it's this weird kind of thing where it's like everybody is dealing with a different version of reality. So I want you to know that before anybody, turns off the episode right away, I'm not going to share my political opinions during the podcast because I don't think that's why most of you tune in. I certainly have them, as do most people. But what I'm hoping to share is something that if at least one of my kind of little thoughts or tips can be helpful just to get you through today, whenever you listen to this, then it's worth it. I'm not always going to get it right. I don't claim to be somebody who, you know, again, is always going to do things perfectly. But again, I want to share some of my observations and thoughts. Ultimately, you're going to have to do what works for you. And I always say that because it's true. So, ways to cope with post election angst. Here are some of the things I've been kind of noticing and thinking about. So, one thing I've learned the hard way, I'm admitting it, I'm human too. I'm sure you already knew that, is that most people, especially now, do not want to be educated. They don't want to be persuaded away from strongly held beliefs or opinions. In fact, most people, when in general, if you try and say, hey, that's wrong and this is why, they tend to resist, right? Like push back or dig in further or just run in the other direction and be like, I can't deal with you. So they remove themselves from interacting with us. So this is just an observation. But again, you're going to have to do what works for you. And every person, every situation, every relationship is different. So I'm hoping, though, that some of these tools help to facilitate a little greater inner peace. I think the more of us that actually can access moments of inner peace, the more likely it is that ultimately There's more outer peace, but it's not easy. So number one, I was thinking of, and these are in no particular order, but I think it's worth wishing for something better, hoping for something better, and then being willing to work for it. Now, I know so many people have worked so tirelessly and are feeling like they're screaming into the void with me for saying that. And I'm not saying anybody didn't work their butts off trying to work for things they believe in. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is you get to decide how the way you'll proceed is going to look. So at minimum, I think for everybody, that means committing to voting, even though it does not always feel like every vote counts. And technically in the United States, it doesn't, because we have something called the Electoral College, but which actually there are lots of problems with that. I won't get into that here. But what I mean is have a sense of what you want to look different and be willing to work for it. That might be on a much smaller scale than most people are thinking of when I say that. It might mean donating to a cause that is important to you. And maybe you already do that. Or volunteering for something when you're up to it. Right now, you might need to just rest and go within and honor that please if you need to. Thanksgiving is coming. So for many people right now, it might mean taking a break from tuning into political things. It might not, but it might mean finding a way to help someone in your own community who's struggling. Right? Because when we do things, acts of service, we feel better. Most of us, not everybody, but most of us are wired to have that experience, right? We want to do something good. And the doing something that helps somebody is reward enough for doing it. But maybe that's, reaching out to community organizations. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do everything. Everything doesn't have to be in a grand scale. It might mean finding where your local food pantry is and donating some food, or making even a small cash donation. It might mean, if you can't do that, doing something that is free, like your friend or neighbor or family member is overwhelmed with work and exhausted, and maybe you babysit for 2 hours so they can take a nap. I'm not saying anything that's rocket science here, but it does make a difference, and it makes us feel like we are doing something to make the world a better place. So many people really just want the world to be better, for people to get a break. And that's something that doesn't cost anything that you can do that might help somebody get through their week. Find something that works for you. If there's somebody elderly in your community, maybe offer to bring them a meal. Just make a little extra when you make it. Do something that means something to you that will make a difference for somebody else. And again, doesn't have to be on a grand scale. Excuse my voice here. I did a meditation tonight, and that was my act of service tonight. And I feel like I got so much more out of it, even than the people who came. And I think they felt that it was helpful. They said so, and I appreciate that. But I got so much out of it. But now I'm losing my voice a little bit. So number two, talk to people who care about you, right? And who understand what you're going through. I think there's plenty of time to look to understand other people and build bridges. And we're going to get to that in one of the other kind of numbers on this list. But it's so vital to have a supportive community. It's so vital to have people that you can text even and just be like, oh God. And they get you. Right. And not everybody has those relationships. And if you don't, that's okay. But it's worth cultivating them for your own mental health, for your physical health. Right. We are not meant to be isolated. And during times of stress, we need people who just kind of get it. You'll know if you have somebody like that in your life or when you meet them. Um, but also find out how you, for you, can regain a sense of agency in your life and in your world. And agency meaning feeling like you have the ability to do the things you need to do and want to do. You have some volitional control. And that's really hard, especially now. But, it might mean not only touching base with that friend who gets you and is like, we're in this together, right? Or here's something we can do together to kind of calm whatever storm is brewing inside. But it might also mean finding a therapist or a support group. And I know in some parts of the country, there aren't as many therapists as there are here. I used to always joke like, oh, in Manhattan, you can't throw a rock without hitting, 5,000 therapists. That's kind of true. But in other parts of the country that are more rural, that might be more difficult. That might mean your church support group. That might mean, again, some online group. That might mean, to begin with, an imagined group. And that sounds weird, but like a YouTube recorded meditation where you feel like that the energy this person is putting forth is caring. And you can imagine a community connected to that. Start where you can start. Number 3, if you need to take a social media break or a news fast for now, please try to honor that. I'm taking off my jacket because even though it's cold out, it's maybe too warm for a fleece in here. But the social media break, the news fast, it's not that I think people should be uninformed. I actually think that's a massive problem in our country is that it's hard to find a reliable source of information. A lot of times people see something, they're inflamed by it. They don't seek to find out, oh, how do I know this is true? Right? That's a whole other thing. And actually, a lot of those people watch too much, a steady diet of what I think is just toxic and misinformation or disinformation. And by the way, nobody who's experiencing misinformation usually thinks that they are. So all of us need to just be a little bit better about saying, okay, how do I know this is true? Right? Look for more than one source. Does it make sense to you? But there is such a thing as being too inundated with stuff. It just stresses us out. I mean, it's like hit after hit after hit of distressing news. And it's not only just now, but I think we need to have, imagine a dial on that, right? Like the volume dial on an old school TV or radio. We're going to turn it up when you want to hear more and tune in and turn it down when it's too much. I'm a doom scroller. I'm going to tell you that before I go to sleep, worst possible thing. But there are times when I am scrolling, because I want to know what is going on, like the up to the minute news kind of items. And, this is disclosure, I do that on this podcast sometimes, but, I'm human too. But leading up to and after 2016, I was a news addict. And I'm not kidding, like TV news in the morning, Twitter scrolling at lunch, and then whenever I got a break. And I remember being on, commuting from work even before that, and always like on my phone looking at the news. And, and then it would be like more news before bed in case something changed. And I, online newspapers and so forth. And I did that for a few years. And maybe I needed to do it, but not enough changed. I kept thinking, okay, something's going to change, something's going to be better. This is going to lead to this great awakening or something, like didn't happen. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be informed. You should, I should, everybody should, but not to the point where you're not sleeping or where you feel like the TV news anchors or, the online pundits and so forth are more a part of your inner landscape than the actual people in your lives. And you think I'm joking, but that actually happens, where all of a sudden you know all of the commentators, and you haven't actually spoken to any of your actual friends and people in your life. That's how you know it's a problem. So if you're feeling amped up, you're not sleeping, your sleep is populated with too much from the news, you're just feeling too wired all the time, what I think is not a bad idea. You know what? Delete some of these apps from your phone. I actually did that for a while. And at first your brain will keep on looking for that hit, that dopamine hit, that, oh my God, here it is. Oh, I almost missed this. Oh, thank God I'm looking and seeing these 8,000 tweets in a row. After a while, you'll stop reaching for the same thing because you will kind of weaken that connection. And you'll start turning your awareness from staring down at your phone to the outside world. Okay, you get what I'm saying. Walk during lunch, do something else. So, number 4, I was thinking, for now at least, or maybe pick a discrete period of time, and what that period is up to you. But in the immediate aftermath of this election, again, whatever side you're on at this point, so many of us are very stressed. For now at least, for a brief period of time, a discrete period of time, you get to choose whatever that period of time is. But given that we're in the immediate aftermath of an incredibly contentious election, understatement, please really, really, really reconsider trying to convert or enlighten anyone, online or in person, unless you not only really have the energy for it, but also, maybe you'll feel it's worth it if it falls on deaf ears, or worse, somebody posts some like awful thing, some hateful or hurtful thing or devaluing thing, or just has to then type in 20 pages of their own rebuttal to what you said. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's not. I'm thinking it's probably not. I mean, if you get it out and you are hoping people change their opinions and it hasn't happened, and as of yet, there might be something else you want to do for self-care purposes. And then try and persuade people who have not been persuaded thus far, right? It's a tremendous amount of energy for you and for them, can just kind of worsen tense relationships. I mean, if you need to do it though, here's my disclaimer. If you need to do it and either you just need to get it out, then you should do it. But be prepared that the response may be different from what you're hoping for. I'm going to say something that I might get a lot of comments about, but most people, right? And nobody thinks it's them, not a soul. Everybody thinks they are the only ones living in the true reality. Most people are living in their own interpretation of reality. That's just how it is, right? I'm not trying to insult anybody. I may 100% agree with you. And we may decide that we are the only ones seeing reality for what it is, right? That's the only legitimate reality. But if you try to enlighten other people who believe that their reality is the only legitimate version, you will probably feel like you are whispering into the wind or screaming into the wind. And again, if you want to do it, if it's worth it, then it's worth it. And I'm going to contradict myself in a second, and I'm going to give you an example of where I think it was worth it. But you have to decide for yourself. So, I think if you really need to express something, especially about your experience, your worries for you and people like you, I think there's so many people who just don't get it. There are so many people who can actually be, I'm not talking about the worst of the worst. I'm talking about your average person who might care about you as a person, but have zero understanding of your experience. And their caring might not be able to extend to them getting what you're going through, but somebody might get it. And maybe it's worth sharing some things. I'm going to give you an example. As I know how painful it is. I've been misunderstood a million times. I think we all have, but certain people are dealing with this much more. Um, and what's more painful than thinking somebody who's supposed to care about you does not care how you're affected? Um, so I was, again, on Facebook. I think that kind of labels me as being part of a specific generation. I don't go on that much, but um, a person that I was friendly with in college, I don't know this person super well, but I have very fond feelings for him. And he posted something that I think it just moved me. Now I'm receptive to what he's posting anyway, but what he posted was this thing, and I don't know if he's the first person to say it or if it's going around, but this is a gay man. And his post was just a quote on a pink background, and it said, "If you don't understand why your gay friend is scared right now, you don't have a gay friend, you know a gay person." And I thought, that is so important that he posted that. And he got a lot of supportive comments from the people who already supported him and already get it. And there will be people who will minimize and devalue or not get it or not care, or and I think when we share things, especially during a contentious and challenged and fraught period in time, we have to be prepared that people that we want better from won't necessarily be able to deliver that. And it's a very painful moment. It just is. But I think that's something we're sharing. And that's me. You may disagree or not, but related to that, because the flip side of sharing something, especially being vulnerable, especially online, is another friend posted something just about, being very sad and distressed and like kind of hopeless. And so this number 6 is resist the urge to invalidate someone's experience, their personal experience when you're online. In person too. So this friend posted about her stress and despair and how she was hurting. And, most of the people who respond, it wasn't a dramatic post. It was actually very brief and just like, God, this is so hard. And one of her Facebook friends' comments started with, "Oh, please." I mean, you could actually hear the tone. And then it was a list of things invalidating her simple statement about how she was feeling. And telling her what she should be doing instead, and how it never makes any difference who's in office. And I know that there are people who believe that. I don't agree with you, but just generally it does. But, I just thought, man, like, first of all, Facebook friends, online friends aren't necessarily friends. Somebody who's going to invalidate your feeling, you know what, if you don't get it, or if it's annoying to you, or you don't want to hear it, you can just scroll, keep on going. Silence this person for 30 days. It's like snooze them, unfriend them, go find something else to do, log off. But if you're going to do something just because you want to diminish them or devalue them, that's just such an kind of it's an awful thing to do. Don't do it. Even if you're angry, just honestly, please close the app for now. All of us, me too. I get angry and I just say, you know what, I got to step away. And younger me would have felt compelled to comment, not about that comment, but about other comments that I find kind of awful. And I just feel like, yeah, I'm tired of screaming into the wind. So number 7, relatedly, put toxic people on snooze. And I don't just mean in your online life. That's worth it. If somebody just reveals themselves to be, you think, kind of constitutionally awful, no one's obligated to be anybody's friend. Honestly, certainly no one's obligated to be anyone's online friend, right? If somebody just seems to be like mean, oh God, why feel like you need to keep them in your roster of online or other contacts? Now, sometimes mean people are part of our families or they're part of our other, some other aspect of our social world. We work with them, whatever. So, my thought with putting toxic people on snooze is that's a time when you are just less available to that person. And I don't mean somebody that you otherwise have really positive feelings for. All of us have people, and they may even share our beliefs on paper, but they're just kind of awful, or they're unkind, or they're hypercritical, or whatever. You know what? That falls into the realm of toxic for me. You have to decide what is toxic for you. But I would just, limit your interaction with that person. Keep it circumscribed. Don't respond to every text or phone call. Just you are not available unless you really want to be. My husband and I were talking this morning about someone, I won't say who it is, but who's we just think of as a fundamentally toxic person who can say the right things, but that you could not trust for 2 seconds. You know, not not necessary to engage all the time with everybody. That's my opinion. It's like, normally I can muster up more politeness for some people. Right now, my energy is just lower. What's that saying? Not today, Satan. I'm not doing it today. Okay, number 8. With regard to mending any relationships, you may have people who reach out to you. You may want to reach out to other people. Again, understanding that you may not ever see eye to eye, or it might be a while, right? But if you find that there is more there that connects you than not, that might be a relationship that you still want to invest in. It's complicated. Or someone might say, I want to understand your point of view better and be completely unchanged by it. Um, if the relationship is important to you enough and it's more good than not, or enough good, and only you can be the judge of that, maybe you seek to dialogue to work on the relationship. If you're up to it, you can consider doing so. But if you're not up to it, or you're not up to it right now, this is, again, assuming you feel like it's worth it, but right now it's just like it's going to take too much out of you, put that kind of off to the side for now. And I think it's perfectly legitimate to say, I want us to work on our relationship, our friendship, whatever, but right now I just need some space. I don't have the energy. Right? And, hopefully if there's enough of a strong basis to the relationship, somebody will honor that. You need to honor you. You need to honor what you can and can't do right now. Right? And we all, by the way, have other things going on, family stuff, health stuff, job stuff, life stuff, right? In addition to all this, it's okay to set a limit around something or say, I will, but not yet, not now. Love yourself enough to set some limits. There's no way to please everybody. I've said this before. So please don't waste your energy trying. Okay, number 9, do what you can to engage in self-care. And I really mean that. But I don't mean that in the kind of BS, ladies magazine way where it's like, 5 tips for self-care, and they may apply to you and they may feel impossible for you. Like the bubble bath has always been one. And you know what? That is relaxing. But you may not have a bathtub. You may not feel like you have 5 minutes to yourself. You may have one bathroom for 6 people. I don't know. So remember, what self-care looks like is going to be different for everybody listening and people at different points in their lives, and that's okay. That does not mean that it's not important to try and find something, even one small thing, even one small chunk of time. All important change starts pretty much step by step, with rare exception, right? Run a marathon, you're not going to put on your shoes and run 26 miles the first day, step by step. Same thing with making a change and putting your own care first. A lot of us, people with families, people with jobs, people with other responsibilities, it's hard. Start small, do what you can do. So, not everybody's going to have the luxury of going to the gym. Most of us can find a way to build in 5 minutes of walking in some way. And you'd be surprised at how that can bring the stress level down. There's research to back it up. Don't take my word for it. A few minutes of stretching in the morning. I mean, there's free yoga on YouTube. Just doing a little bit of stretching in your bedroom before you leave for the day or before you go to bed. You might be surprised at what a difference that can make in calming the nervous system. Okay. Maybe it means doing less of something. Maybe you've been using a lot of alcohol to cope, maybe a little more than normal. Maybe the first step is to be more mindfully aware of that, right? Maybe you're not ready to make a change, but you notice you're not feeling quite like yourself. Or maybe you're having, like me, too much coffee and it's interfering with sleep. And then we're in that cycle of over caffeinating and that caffeine dependency or addiction, right? So noticing what it is that you think you might want to change or a part of you will, and trying to do so. Asking for help can be an act of self-care. And even if it's a small thing at home or at work, asking somebody and letting them know why it's important. You can't do everything. Everybody needs help sometimes. All right. Number 10, if somebody's hurting, please understand that they might first and foremost just want you to listen rather than trying to solve the issue or persuade them that they don't need you to listen. A lot of times, especially now, people just want to know that you understand or you're willing to try to understand and that you care, period. Even taking agreement out of it. I hear you. I'm listening. I'm sorry you're going through this, right? If that's what you need, that's part of number 9, self-care. Again, ask for it. I just need you to hear me out. I need 5 minutes of your time. I need someone to talk to. Let other people know up front and be willing to hear if somebody can't give you that. That's the caveat for that. If they can't provide that, it's important to look elsewhere. And again, that might be a professional. So, again, know when you just need someone to listen or somebody just needs you to listen. Number 11, breathe, 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 breathe. Again, one of the most underrated ways to calm the nervous system, but thoughtful, mindful breathing, just observing your own breath, allowing your breath to deepen and slow down a bit. You'll find this even easier after you do a little bit of light stretching, but again, there's so much free mindfulness stuff online, including brief breath work. So if it's new to you and you don't have an established practice, look for something free online, please. Our lives, for all of us, life is lived from one moment to the next, in one moment and the next. So we're all vulnerable to getting very amped up or sad, or longing for obsessing about the past, right? Take from it what you can, learn from it, reminisce a little bit, but don't live there. Don't live in the past. Most people, if they have a positive view of the past, tend to idealize it. And honestly, if we were to put them in a time machine, it wouldn't be this idealized thing that they think it is. And, if it was damaging, stressful, traumatizing, please see someone to get help so that you don't have to keep living in a, a distressing past. Because again, for all intents and purposes, the moment you have is the now. Similarly, we obsess over the future. We worry about the future. We plan for the future. We think in the future everything is going to be better. Every moment you experience in the now was the future before now. It was. You're in the only moment you have, all of us. And our breath and mindfully attending to our breath can help us to live there more peacefully. So that's it. Just some thoughts. Again, you have to do this in the way that's right for you. These are just some things I've been thinking about. Please know that I wish you peace. I do. I wish you peace. I wish you healing. I wish you whatever is most helpful. I want this world to be better so much, and I know you do too. So, with that, until next time, please know that I wish you all the very best. Be well.